I hope I'm audible now. Am I audible? Can you hear me now? Am I still on mute? Oops, I think yes, now I think yes, I can see this moving now, finally. Ah, it's like Mercury retrograde. But yeah, I hope I'm audible now. Am I audible? Can you hear me? Is there somebody? I see 30 people are there. Can somebody write? Or maybe you are writing, but it's not visible. What's going on? Mm, let me write. Am I audible? Live chat. Ah, okay. Now I can see all the responses. Ah, sorry. Extremely sorry for this. All right. Now that we are audible, you and me both. You were always audible. I was not. All right. Finally. So, after a long time, what's going on in the astrology community? Which planets are transiting which houses? Which planets are stationary? Which planets are direct? Which planets are retrograde? I am having no idea from the last month because I have been traveling to different holy places in India, and now I'm a bit stationed at my home in Guwahati. So now finally I get to see these messages, where is this video, where's that video? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, we can start. All right. There's a lot of people. Devanshi ji, hello. Dr. Minakshi ji is here. Monster Reviews is saying yes. Ipshita Pal is here. Ruby K. Monster Reviews. Janvi Bhukon. Janvi ji, nice to have you. Tony T. Hello. Nike 5708. Okay. Loud and clear. All right. Good evening. Can hear. Yes, audible. All right. You are visible and audible. Okay, great. A lot of people here. So, please tell me, what should I speak on? It's been a long time. Well, of course, I thought I can speak on Jupiter's transit Jupiter getting direct. Somebody is asking, how was my trip? Ruby K is asking, my trip was fantastic. My trip is still going on and it will go on till end of December. So I could visit so many places. So I had visited many different places in North India, and I had met a lot of different astrologers. You might have seen in my community page. I had met Navneet Chitkara ji from Rudra Vedic Academy. I guess that's what his academy is, and his YouTube channel, I guess, is uh, Astro Scientist Navneet Chitkara. So I met him and his family. It was a great time. We met in Amritsar, and then he took me to his home very graciously in Ludhiana, and I had the fortune of going in his car through Jalandhar, and it was a very nice trip. And then, of course, I visited different places like where did I go after Punjab? So after Punjab, I was in New Delhi, India. I was at Aman Bedi ji's house from Aman Bedi Astrology, and there I met, of course, Nitin Kashyap ji, and I also met Vanita Lenka ji for the first time in my life. So these two astrologers, the first time, Navneet ji and Vanita ji, and after that I went to, I guess, Vrindavan, Mathura, and then I went to Haridwar, and then I went to Ayodhya. Then yes, so many places. The list is very long, right? And then finally now I am in Guwahati. and I will be visiting Pune on 24th, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. 4 days I'll be in Pune, and on 28th I will be in Mumbai. Okay, and 20th night I will be flying back to Germany. Okay, Kirtan Patel is saying, what is effect where Jupiter becomes malefic like Tula Lagna? See, Jupiter becomes a natural malefic, of course. He's the third lord, he's the sixth lord for Tula Lagna. So, this is a very tricky situation. Imagine a good person is having the duty to punish you, right? It's not a very pleasant scenario, right? But what does this mean? Does this mean that Jupiter will not punish you, or will he reduce the punishment? Well, unfortunately not. So if Jupiter is badly placed for a Tula Lagna native, then it can make life difficult in your dasha. Okay, so that's how it is, unfortunately. But because he's Jupiter, what he does is he will give you some ray of hope or some good guidance somewhere, depending on his placement, of course, not a blanket statement, depending on how he's in your Navamsha, and depending on how he is in the Dashamsha for your profession, and so many other things, the chart, the Lagna chart, the Bhava chart. So, depending on all these things, we have to finally judge the results of Jupiter for a Tula Lagna native. But yeah, it can be tough. Just because he's Jupiter, it doesn't mean life's going to be easy in the Dasha. Okay. But again, it depends on the placement. So if your Jupiter is in the 10th house for Libra Lagna, okay, so in Cancer, for example, then it can give rise in profession, but after difficulties, okay, because of two reasons. Because it is exalted, but it is also um, in the strongest of the Kendras, and it's a Artha house, and 10th house is the house of name, fame, power, position, right? So that is why it will give you, and it will give you good direction. But since it is the sixth lord, so there will be struggles. It won't happen easily. Chinta Gunta is my Delhi Ram Kumar is asking, did you visit Chennai SRM? Well, not yet. I have done my bachelor's there in 2010 to 2014, but I have I had visited the last time in 2015. But hopefully next year or 2024, if not, then surely in 2025. All right. Jia Shiban is saying, sir, please talk about Parivartan Yoga and planets conjoined with them. Parivartan Yoga is a very tricky situation. Okay. It can be very good, it can be very bad sometimes. So it depends what kind of Parivartan is it. Okay. So if and the trickier the house is, I mean, trickier means the more counterintuitive the houses are, the more the difficulty is in judging it. So for example, if you have the eighth lord and the 10th lord in Parivartan, okay, so eighth lord is in 10th, 10th lord is in eighth, then what happens? So one of the two can happen. Either there may be a setback and then you might get a big position, or, and this is what people tell in YouTube, 8 10 Parivartan, setback and then gain in profession. But the fact of the matter is exactly the opposite can also happen. You might get something and immediately there may be a setback. All right. So it depends on the chart, what's going on. So Parivartan Yoga should be studied very, very, very carefully. Okay. Otherwise, Parivartan Yoga can be very misunderstood. So sometimes if there is Parivartan of two houses, people intrinsically assume it is very good. Well, it can be good, but for what, right? So for example, if there's a parivartana between the 5th and the 10th, right? So 5th lord in 10th, 10th lord in 5th. So what happens? Mm, is this parivartan good? Well, of course, it's a great parivartan. But for what is it good? That's the question, right? So is it good for the 5th house or for the 10th house or for the overall chart? Well, that will depend on the signs, right? So therefore, if a planet is in parivartan but it is in debility, most likely the traits related to that planet, you have to lose it completely to gain things related to the other planet. So it's like a planet has crushed itself to give you something else. Okay, so it's like you have trouble somewhere, but you invite your friend and say, hey, can you stay here, because I will go to where you stay, and that person agrees to come and stay here in trouble, right? So parivartan yoga can show one-sided growth sometimes. Okay, one area of life is completely stalled, but the other area of life, nothing much is happening there. Okay, so now, but yeah, if um, there are other Raj yogas, like Dhan yoga is also getting involved along with the Parivartan yoga, like second, 11th lords are in each other's houses. Oh, then that's a phenomenal Parivartan, right? So then that is a Raj yoga. I mean, of course, if the 11th lord is in second, or if the second lord is in 11, even then it's a half, even though it is not a Parivartan, if there's only one placement, then also it is a very good yoga, very Raj yoga. But if directly there is Parivartan, 211 house lords sitting in each other's houses, then it's a even better, even bigger Parivartan. And if there's a Mahapurush yoga involved, it's even more, right? Mahapurush yoga. So if the fourth lord and seventh lord are in Parivartan, and one of them is sitting either in own sign or Mool Trikon or exaltation, because 4 and 7 are Kendras. And if a planet sits in a Kendra, I mean, planets except Sun, Moon, and Rahu Ketu, the other 5 planets, if they sit in Kendra in own sign, Mool Trikon or exaltation, then they are said to form some kind of Mahapurush yogas, right? So then that becomes phenomenally powerful. But again, imagine a planet has formed Mahapurush yoga, but the other planet has gone to debility or has gone to enemy sign, right? So among the two, so then it becomes very tricky, because then this is what I said, there's growth in one area and then the other area collapses, right? That's unfortunate, but that's how it is. That's how it happens. Okay. Good question on Parivartan Yoga. It's a very Parivartan Yoga actually tests our astrological knowledge. It tests us. I have also made blunders with it, and I know so many astrologers who have also made blunders, because we take it in a very simplistic way. Oh, it's Parivartan, so it has to be great, right? No, it's not like that. But it can be even better than what we think, right? As I said, if Dhan Yoga is involved, or Mahapurush yoga is involved, or if the 5th and the 9th lord, some Lakshmi Narayan yoga is involved, and if the Lagna lord is involved, wow, that's fantastic. It's mind blowing, brilliant, out of the world. So if second lord is in 11th, 11th lord is in second, and the Lagna lord is also in the 11th, wow, what a placement. These are very rare placements, or even if it is there, you got to check the Navamsha, what's the strength in the Navamsha and all, that's how you got to check it. Dr. Meenakshi Nagal is saying, what's the effect of a planet to come out of a retrogression, specifically Jupiter? See, what does a retrograde planet do? It clears off unfinished tasks, right? So now the task is not complete, but your unfinished business is resolved. But your task is still not complete. Okay. So the common example which I always give is, you want to go to the market and you forget the car keys. So then when you realize, the moment you realize I do not have the keys, that is the time when a planet is stationary retrograde. That is the time when, that is the moment when you realize you are in a mess. You need to get out of this, right? So that's stationary retrograde. Okay. Stationary retrograde, which means it is about to turn retrograde. Sorry, that's called stationary direct, because the planet was moving direct, but now it has become stationary. Okay. So now your growth has stopped. Your direct motion has stopped. Now you are moving retrograde. So then after stationary direct, the retrograde motion starts. So during the retrograde motion, you you want to, or rather you need to clear the nonsense that is there. And once you clear it off, may not be completely, but at least to the extent that you need to survive, the planet again becomes stationary. So that is called stationary retrograde, where a planet was retrograde, but now it has become stationary. And after it is stationary retrograde, then it is stationary, and then finally it becomes direct again. Okay. So you have to understand the significance of the planets according to their movement. So if, like, people always keep talking of transits, but what if in your original birth chart, if you had a planet which is like, stationary retrograde, or it is stationary direct. So now you may think, oh, I have Jupiter in this house. Okay. Jupiter is in fourth house. Okay. It is exalted. I am Aries Lagna, for example. Okay. So somebody is Aries Lagna and Jupiter in fourth house. Exalted direct. Wow. 12th Lord, 9th Lord in the fourth house. Fantastic education. But now, what if it is direct but it is stationary? What happens? So that planet will have tremendous anxiety. A stationary planet has tremendous anxiety. The highest level of anxiety is there with a stationary planet, because the stationary planet is that moment when you realize that you have messed up things. So you have to see the speed of the planet also, just not the degrees, right? There are softwares which do that. So if the speed is very less, or that it's stationary, so the year you are born, you should go and then check. So the first thing that you should do, if you don't have the software, you should go to drikpanchang.com. Then you see Mars. Then you go to, there is a place where you can find retrograde periods. Okay. So then you go to 1970, for example. So then you see, because Sun, Moon, Rahu, Ketu will never have retrogression, right? Rahu, Ketu are retrograde by default. So then you see, okay, Mercury, when was it retrograde? So if it was retrograde the next day of your birth, what does this mean? It means the day you were born, Mercury was direct on paper, but it was stationary direct, which means it was going and then just stopped. And what if Mercury is your 10th lord, being stationary direct? Tremendous anxiety. There's some unfinished business which you got to do. And now suppose you see, oh, a planet is retrograde. Oh yeah, my Venus is retrograde, so maybe my relationships don't work. But what if after the day you were born in 1970, the next day, or that very same day, or maybe after 1 or 2 days, 2 days maximum, the planet went direct? So get the dates of these 5 planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, for the year. And because Mercury is very frequently retrograde, right? We only see one thing, either it's retrograde or direct, but we don't see which planet is stationary. And for Jupiter, Saturn, because they are slow moving planets, at least 3-4 days before the motion is direct or retrograde, at least 3-4 days, it is stationary. Even it can be 1 week sometimes. So if you see that you are born on like 1st April 1975 and Saturn went retrograde on 5th April, then it is almost stationary, almost, right? So that's how you have to do this research. Research is very important. Astrology is the 8th house. You got to do research. You have to have this information. It should be there in your lips, not in your head. So whenever somebody asks you, okay, Saturn in 1st house, what happens? You should have at least 100 is an exaggeration, at least 10 examples. 5 examples should be of people that you know, your family members, relatives, friends, colleagues, tried and tested. And 5 people should be from some celebrity or politician or big personality who has passed on at least 60-70 years of their life, because then you know what's exactly going on, how Saturn is playing out in their lives, because for the near and dear ones you have seen them closely, so you can understand. And for the other persons, their life is well documented in public, so then you can use that for research. So for every planet, every house, every sign, have 10 examples. If you can do this, wow. And 10 examples doesn't mean, okay, this XYZ lady had Venus in 6th house in the sign of Taurus, so there was divorce. Okay, that means any lady who has Venus in 6th house in Taurus will have a divorce. No, that's not how you do the research. You have to first see the placement, and then you have to analyze the whole chart, and then you have to understand how is that specific. The same Venus in 6th house for Taurus, which means the person is a Sagittarius Lagna. For Sagittarius, Taurus is the 6th house. So for Sagittarius Lagna, for those 10 examples, how is this 6th Lord in 6 Venus in Taurus playing out? Not that, oh, for all 10 there is divorce. No, it's not like that. Why did one person with Sagittarius Lagna get divorced, and why did another person stay unmarried his or her whole life? Why? And why did somebody gets married with Venus in 6th in Taurus, but they have unhappy married life? Maybe they are not divorced, they are not separated, but they're not very happy. They're planning to get divorced, or they're wondering should they stay together, right? So you take 10 examples different, right? Or at least there should be some similarities. Okay, so then you know how you should do the research. Okay, so 10 examples you should have, and try to see how the same thing is happening in a different way. And you have to understand why is it happening differently. That is where is the magic of astrology. So if you see 10 charts, Sagittarius Lagna, Venus in Taurus in the 6th house, okay, then you see, oh, this person had a divorce, but this person did not. Why? Maybe their 7th lord is strong, maybe their 2nd lord is strong, maybe their 11th lord is strong, maybe their Lagna lord is strong. For the person who has Venus in 6th in Taurus but who did not get divorced. But maybe for the person who got divorced with Venus in 6th in Taurus, the 2nd, 7th, 11th, these lords are screwed up. They're either in debility, or they're afflicted, or they're miserably placed somewhere, right? So that's very important to see that why is the same planet behaving differently for another person? Why? Maybe the planet was stationary direct, stationary retrograde. I've seen people with stationary stationary Venus. Okay, stationary Venus means, as I said, a planet is about to move retrograde. These people always are bringing old things from their earlier relationships to their present relationships, always. So they will punish their current partner for the sins of their previous partners, always. Why? Because they are in that anxiety that something is not right and I need to get it right. Right? So that's how it is. So see the degree, see the sign, see the house, see the speed. Do not ignore the speed. Okay, do not, just do not. That's where is the entire game of astrology. It's like a game. Somebody is asking what sadhana to do to become a good astrologer. See, who is a good astrologer basically? A good astrologer, see, if you see as per the scriptures and the definition, astrologer is basically a Brahmin. Okay. Now, there are many traits of a Brahmana, but one of the traits is a Brahmana is very simple. Okay, simplicity, sadalata, right? So there are two things. One is your sadhana, another is the sadachar. Sadhana is the spiritual practices that you do, and the other is sadachar. How do you behave? Are you very duplicitous? Are you? It's okay to be diplomatic, but it's not good to be duplicitous. Okay, or can you? Are you truthful, or are you truthful in a way that you can help people? Because sometimes people they speak lies, but sometimes people speak the truth in ways which does more harm to the person who is hearing, right? So therefore you should read the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna speaks about qualities of a Brahmin, right? Shamo damas tapas saucham shantir arjavame vacha jnanam vijnanam astigyam brahma karma swabhavajam. And of course a Brahmana has a life where he's thinking of others, right? He's thinking of himself also and his family, but he's ready to extend himself. There is compassion, there is karuna, right? And a person astrologer's life should be very disciplined. A discipline doesn't mean he's going to the gym at 4 a.m. every day. That's not necessarily, I mean, in today's day and age that may be the interpretation of discipline, but yeah, he has a time where he sleeps, where he eats, where when he will go for his morning duties. He has a fixed time where he does his sadhana every day. He chants mantras, he does some puja, he does some archan. And of course, Brahma Janiti iti Brahmin. That's what is the meaning of a Brahmana. One who knows Brahma. Brahma means the supreme God. So one who has spiritual inquisitiveness. Okay. And nowadays everything is like segregated. Earlier times it was not like this. The Brahmins in the earlier times, they would know astrology by default. You would never find a Brahmin who did not know astrology. It was not possible. And that is why we had all this different types of Brahmanas. We have the Vedi, then we have Dvivedi, then we have Trivedi, Chaturvedi, right? Vedi means one who knows one Veda. That's their limit. Then Dvivedi, they have studied two Vedas, right? Trivedi, Chaturvedi, very knowledgeable. Well, they may not be now, but they are supposed to be. Or maybe their ancestors were, but that knowledge was not passed down, right? So therefore these are the good traits of a Brahmana, right? Simplicity is a very important trait. Forgiveness, very, very, very important. Of course, that doesn't mean you let yourself to be exploited 24/7. It doesn't mean that, because you cannot light others by destroying yourself, right? You need to enlighten somebody, then you have to be stable yourself first. So do that which is necessary, but and of course most importantly the person should be doing spiritual practices every day morning, or preferably in the morning. And critically the person should be staying away from uh, sinful habits. That's very 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 crucial, because a person who is afflicted by bad habits cannot do much good for us. They can be good as philosophers or guides, but or they may be very good predictors also, but at the end it's difficult for them to be a well-wisher, because there are certain things which bad habits do, like for example intoxication, right? Intoxication is like when a person is giving into his lows, right? The person is not able to say no. Nowadays there's great emphasis on saying no always, keep saying no to people. But what about saying no to your lower nature? That's forgotten, right? Vedic cultures nowadays people say, oh, parents are saying say no, relative is saying say no, friend is saying say no, corporate, learn how to say no, learn to say no, be yourself, this, that. Okay, what about saying no to your desires, the stupid rascal desires of your mind, which is telling you to do whatever you want, right? That nobody says no. That's equally or more, thousand times more miserable that makes you, compared to saying no to some people. Now of course I'm not saying that don't say no to anybody, but say no to people, but understand that the mind that we have, the mind, the manas, is contaminated with lot of materialistic desires, and that mind has to be purified by doing spiritual practices, by going into satsang, meeting spiritual people, right? So stay away from intoxication, stay away from gambling. It's the second pillar of sin. Gambling makes your mind very disturbed, oh my god, what will happen, right? We have the example of Yudhishthir Maharaj. He gambled and he lost everything, right? He lost himself, he lost his brothers, his wife, everything, every single penny was finished, right? But nonetheless, he's a very great personality. And when Lord Krishna does something through his great devotees, he wants to teach certain lessons. But gambling is very dangerous. And then, of course, we have meat eating, right? Try to avoid meat completely, 100%, because that's going to take you into tamoguna, right? Violence basically violates the principle of ahimsa, basically, right? And of course, the last, the most dreaded, and the most difficult, that is illicit connections with the opposite sex, right? Illicit sex, that is also very 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 dangerous. It's the worst thing that you can do, right? So it is always good to limit the interactions with the opposite sex, uh, and especially, of course, if you're married, then be faithful to your spouse. That's how, these are the things that you have to abstain. And then there are spiritual practices that you do, and then there is sadachar, right? Where you have an exemplary behavior, people look up to you for an inspiration. Whenever you enter a room, everybody's hearts lighten up, because Yudhishthir Maharaj, one of his names was Ajata Shatru, right? Ajata Shatru means one who does not have any enemy. Can you imagine? You are the king of the world, but you do not have enemies. My God, it's unbelievable. I mean, you may have enemies, but you do not consider anybody as your enemy, because if you read the Bhagavad Gita, it's very counterintuitive, because Krishna is telling to Arjuna, great soul is one who does not uh, harbor malice against anybody in his heart. So great soul is one who always forgives. Forgiveness, one of the important qualities for Brahmana, right? So a great soul has no enemies. But then Krishna is telling him, but now you got to fight and kill all this. Of course, why did Krishna say that? Because that was Arjuna's duty at that point of time, right? So sadachar, and so you have to do spiritual practices, abstain from the pillars of sin, and have a good behavior, right? And then you will be good at astrology. But nowadays the problem is people think astrology just means predictions, right? Or giving some big fancy tips, or it's like gambling basically, right? Predict who's gonna win this cricket match. I will go and bet there, right? I know people who use astrologers to. Now the World Cup is going on, right? Football World Cup. So I know so many people who are getting into these bets through the help of astrologers. Can you believe it? And there are astrologers who are supporting them in doing this. Wow, that's incredible. What a use of Parashara's knowledge, right? Or rather, what a misuse. What a pity, right? So astrology is like a bridge between. Astrology gives you an idea about your karma and the reactions of your actions in this life. So once you come to know about the things that will anyways happen to you, inevitably you can't change, not possible. Once you do that, then you got to understand that you can't stop the rains, but you can have a raincoat, right? So astrology is to tell you how much rain is there in which area of life. So for some people, um, it's rainy season in terms of their profession. There is no growth. Okay. All right. So my mom is there at the door. She's breaking my speech. We have to go to attend a wedding now, so I will have to push now. All right. I see 100 people are here. All right. So thank you so much. See you again soon. And somebody asked me, how was your Pune trip? I stayed in Pune but couldn't make it to meet you. No, I have not visited Pune yet. I will be visiting on 23rd, 24th of December. So I have not yet visited Pune. All right. Priyanka ji is saying thank you for a wonderful session. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you. See you soon.